So here we are on our final day of the 40-day rhythm guitar SWAT camp journey that we've embarked on together. Now, just like the first day, before we dive into what's going on, we need to explain something about the click track. The click track that you have lovingly heard for the last 39 days has been adjusted somewhat. What you have here is an open hi-hat on 1, because it's very important that you know where 1 is, as the montuno that you will be checking out here, montunos, courtesy of Charlie Hunter through Jude Gold, employs a bass line that starts on the downbeat of 4. So before we get into that, let's just make sure we know what the click track sounds like. So here it is. So as you can hear, the open hi-hat is on 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to not use the pick, so we're going to put that down. We're going to use straight up finger picking technique, and we're going to play the bass note with the thumb, and we'll play the melody notes with the first, second, and third finger. But let's concentrate on the thumb for a second here. So in example 2, that takes the simple bass line you see in example 1 and puts it into the proper syncopation that the montuno calls for. So as I said, we're going to start the bass note on the downbeat of 4 as a pickup, and then keep using that as we cycle it around with the repeats. So we have this beat 4 tied into a dotted quarter note of the first downbeat, which makes this note last for 2.5 beats. This is where it's very easy to lose the feel for 1 and to start thinking that that beat 4 is actually the 1. So use that open hi-hat to your advantage and count out loud as you do this. So I'm going to play example 2 for you, and I'm going to count out loud so you know where I am. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 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 1. If it helps, even accent you saying 1, not just relying on the click track to accent it for you. You say it. So as you come around, you say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see when you start playing this, you're almost going to have to convince yourself where the 1 is, because you're really going to want to make beat 4 feel like 1, but it's not. Okay, so let's move on to example 3. So what we're doing here is outlining the upper part of the chords. And what we have here is a montuno in the key of C, and we're outlining 1, 4, 5, 4 progression. That's what the bass line did. Now you're going to hear it more prominent, though, once we establish the harmony. So we are going to play it right now with these fingerings, these closed position fingerings for C, F, and G. Now, right now I'm playing a G over D, or a G major triad, but it says G7 in the chart, but you're only going to be playing tones that are found in a G triad. So the pick hand fingers that I'm using are first, second, and third, and they are dedicated to the fourth, third, and second string, respectively. The key here is the fact that you will need to play the same note twice. You can see that if you look over at the second bar, the upbeat of 2, you will play F 2 times. So you'll need to do this. So what I did is I employed my second finger and my first finger to play the same note. You have to get this under your fingers in order to be able to play the montuno as a whole. It's very important that you take this slow and put the time in to perform this technique correctly. You'll do it again actually right after that on the upbeat of 4 when you play the C that goes back around to cycle around because of the repeat to the downbeat of 1. So you'll do it again with 4 and 1. So putting it all together slow, we have... Let's put it in time. And the time that we have here is it's a 150. I'm playing all this stuff at. That's what I played example 2 at. That's what I'm playing example 3 at here. And you know what? This time I'm going to play with the full chords, because you're going to need those when you go to example 4, when we put it all together to make the final version of this montuno. But here's what example 3 in time with the full fingering at 150. Now, as you can hear, my fingers were hammering some of those lower bass notes a bit. That's going to disappear here once I start playing the bass notes and also start applying some proper finger muting. So here it is. Example 4, putting it all together. Now, as you've learned throughout this course, never look at playing bass lines and melody notes at the same time as something that is two different parts happening at the same time. What it is a third part unto itself. Analyze what you're looking at in example 4 vertically. Take each beat on its own and put together everything that you need to put together and look at it as a whole and not two separate things, as that will make this very, very difficult. And it already is hard enough. Okay, so my thumb will play the bass notes. My first and second fingers will stay with their string assignments that we've already established. Watch for the 2-1 finger picking technique that we just outlined in example 3. And here is example 4, C major montuno. If you notice as I played that, when I played the F chord that first pops up at the upbeat of 2 in the first measure, after I get done with playing it, what I do is hold the top part of the chord while I try to bring over the bass note to play the G while that's still ringing, just to keep the continuity of sound, to keep the notes ringing for the duration that they're indicated on the chart, and just for the overall vibe. So as I play the rest of these examples, you're going to notice that I'm swinging that first finger over to make this happen. Moving over to example 5, we find the same C major montuno that outlines a 1-4-5-4 progression, but this time we're going to play more harmonically. We're going to play 2-note chunks of the chord. We're still going to finger the chords the same. We're still going to play the bass note exactly the same. We're just going to have to play these little mini dyads inside of the triads, which makes it sound a little fuller. But the other thing that we're going to throw in is I'm going to have the click track set to a cut time feel, where you're only going to hear the open hi-hat on the downbeat of 1 and then the close hi-hat on the downbeat of 3. So everything else is the same. It's just we're making it easier if you're trying to follow this with tapping your foot, which you should be, to stay aware of the 1 and stay aware of the overall pulse. So I'm only playing these at 150. These can be heard up at 170 to 190 ranges, and that's not easy to tap your foot at those tempos. So it's a good idea to get used to this cut time feel. So let's check out what the click track sounds like first, so we know what to expect. So that's what it's going to be in cut time, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's example 5 at 150. And remember, this is a more harmonic C major montuno. Here we go. Jumping over to example 8, we see the montuno put into a minor key, this time the relative minor of C, which is A minor. Now, while some things stay the same, some things do change. The chord progression is not a 1-4-5-4 anymore. Now it's a 1-4-5-2, as we have the B minor 7 flat 5 pop up on the third beat of the second measure. Also, what we see is less notes in the melody part, but that doesn't change the finger assignments for the first, second, and third fingers playing the fourth, third, and second string. The bass line stays exactly the same, meaning that you rhythmically play the same thing, except the notes change. So let's hear what the bass line sounds like, and then we'll put it together. So here's example 8's bass line. Okay, now let's play through example 8 and listen how the quarter notes that are played on downbeats are cut off and made into eighth notes on downbeats with eighth note rests as seen in the chart. So that's a little tricky, and I'll explain to you how I do it, but watch me do it first. Now, in order to accomplish those upbeat eighth note rests that you're seeing throughout the chart, for the first 3 that happen, what I do is this. I reapply the pick hand finger that plucked those strings. So let's say we're coming out of, or we're starting with the pickup note that happens on beat 4, and we need to play that C that's on the downbeat, you know, the 5th fret 3rd string C. So we have this. Now you see I plucked it or picked it with my pick hand second finger, and then immediately put that finger back down. Now luckily for me, that's the finger I need to use to play this. So I have to play the D anyway. But right after that, I need to toggle between this D bass note that's on the upbeat of 2 and this E that's on the 5th fret of the 2nd string on the upbeat of 3. So I have to go. Now notice the D gets to ring, but the E is cut. That's how I accomplish the first 3. Now for the rest of the melody notes, what I'm doing is utilizing my left hand, or my fret hand, to do this. So after I play, say, the bass note on the downbeat of 4 here to outline the E, when I play the third of the chord, the G sharp, with my second hand, second finger, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to release the pressure, the fretting pressure, and that's how I'm going to accomplish the rest of them. Another thing to take note is the fact that when, on the downbeat of 3, when I play the B minor 7 flat 5, the 2 chord, what'll happen is I will utilize this fingering here to accomplish the E that starts on the downbeat of 4 in the first bar. So that leaves me with this to come down and get that 2 chord. Second finger on the bass note, 7th fret low E, and then fourth finger is going to play the flat third, the D of the B minor 7 flat 5, with the fourth finger on the 7th fret of the G string. So, and you will also utilize the same pick hand fingers, thumb for the bass note, second finger for the melody note. But again, you'll choke it by releasing the fret hand pressure. And what I do is I drop my first finger almost in like a angled bar, because what I need to do after that is quickly drop that bass note. And that's how you do example 8. And that brings us to our final example in our final lesson. This is example 9. Now before we let you go, you're going to have to do some work here in order to be able to play this one. What's happening here is you have to clearly play the bass line, or murder the bass line, as Charlie Hunter says, and you have to staccato every note in the melody. So in order to do that, your fret hand is going to fret the note and then immediately release the pressure. Similar to what we just did in example 8, except you have to do it right after you pick it in order to get a short, quick attack. And that's what staccato calls for. So let's hear the bass line before we get into playing this, so you know what that sounds like. Again, I'll use my thumb. This one's a little different. This takes off from the montuno, a bass pattern that we've heard throughout the previous examples. And this one also outlines a different chord progression where we're coming in with 1, changing it to dominant to set up the 4, and then hit the 5 at the end. And notice this one is also 4 bars instead of 2. So here's what the bass line sounds like. Okay, now, as I said, you're going to have to staccato all the melody notes. So let me play it for you, and then I'll explain to you some of the fingerings that enabled me to put this all together. So here's example 9 altogether, again at 150. Now, some of the fingerings I employed are some things I normally would not do, but since I have a staccato technique that's called for the melody, it actually allows me to do these things. So to finger the C chord, I'm actually splitting it up into 2 different ways to do it. Right off the bat, I'm using my first finger to hit the bass note here, and my third and second finger to catch that minor third between the 3rd and 5th of the chord. But then, since I have a staccato technique in play, as I said, I'm able to play this note with the second finger and this note over here with the third finger, and then jump over without really interrupting anything, because the only thing that I have to maintain sustain of is the bass note. So I can do this. And then immediately get over for the bass note that I have to have with the third finger. I have to play the 10th fret G here. The tricky part is, though, when you drop this, you have to immediately take off your fourth finger to staccato the melody note. So what happens is in the second half of the C chord, it looks like a second inversion major triad, which it is. But as soon as I play this staccato note over here for the E, I have to bounce it to the B flat for my bass note. So it has the staccato, and then come down and hold a B flat to outline the C7, which from there looks like I I hold down a root and play the third and fifth of a B flat major chord. So I have this. And then from there, I switch this second finger from my third finger to hold down a tritone between E and B flat, but immediately take off the B flat because that's part of the melody now instead of being the bass note. And this is, again, a second half, just like the C had two halves, the C7 has two halves. So from here, I use this to get the tritone, and then the second finger to play the D here, a 7th fret G string, which once again, as soon as it plays a melody note, the second finger has to swing over and play the bass note of an F. And then from there, like the B-flat looking major triad that I played, now I have to play an F major looking triad by holding down a bass note and staccatoing the third and the fifth of an F major triad. From there, for once you get a break, you just move up your second finger to F sharp, which is this is more of the part where it's all passing tones. So as you hold down this F sharp or G flat, however you want to look at it, my melody notes look as if I'm outlining a fifthless G flat major 7 chord. So, and remember, as you play the G flat, you need to immediately staccato the F that you will strike at the same time at the downbeat of 3 in the third measure. Then from there, you need to swing your fourth finger to catch the G, to start outlining the G7, which actually you just played G chord tones once again. And you'll lay the third and first finger down to make a root position G major closed triad. So you'll have this. And then after that, I'll take the third finger and just swing it right over that fourth finger to grab the low D and use my first finger to catch that higher G, which of course has to immediately release to get the staccato. And then you can swing around and repeat it till your heart's content.